From the Center for the Study and Teaching of Writing at The Ohio State University, this is Writers Talk. I'm Doug Dangler. Today I am here with Bob Hunter, who is a sports writer, reporter, and all-around Ohio fan, and he has covered every topic from the Cincinnati Reds to the Ohio State Buckeyes to the history of Columbus, and he's here with his new book, St. Woody, The History and Fanaticism of Ohio State Football. Welcome, Bob Hunter.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Well, tell me about the St. Woody book. What prompted you to write it, and how did you get into writing it?
Well, it's really about, it's not just about Woody Hayes, although Woody Hayes is a big part of the book. It's kind of about the fanaticism of Ohio State football, and I've been here for 38 years, so I know a lot about that.
You may have seen some of it.
May have seen a little bit of that. But I titled it St. Woody because even though Woody has been gone for a year, been dead for years, he's kind of, a lot of people don't even know him, kind of still revere him as a saint, which kind of shows you the fanaticism of it. I mean, if you live here, which I know you do, it's Ohio State football is kind of a monster.
It's a little bit unavoidable.
Yeah.
So it's a monster, and you cover it on a pretty regular basis as a reporter for the Dispatch. So how much of this grew out of the reporting that you did, and you thought, I really want to focus on this for a much longer piece?
The book is about kind of all aspects of it, and so I kind of went through a lot of individual chapters on not only individual people like Woody or Jim Tressel or Earl Bruce, but also or Chick Harley, but also games, the Snow Bowl, the 1935 Notre Dame game, interesting moments kind of in history that telling kind of the story of how it became the way it is, how it became so big, and why people treat it the way they do.
Okay. So in your writing of the book, what has come out that really surprised you, that you thought, oh, I didn't know this before, and I was really interested to learn? What kind of new things did you run into writing the book?
Oh, I mean, I really got kind of in depth into some things that I hadn't, you know, as I said, like the Snow Bowl, for example. You know, I interviewed some people who were, you know, in 1950, you know, the Snow Bowl, this snowstorm created this, you know, really horrible conditions. They could, you know, people couldn't see. It was a horrible game, and people got stranded. It was a huge snowstorm that stranded people all over the state, and so. In doing things like that and kind of researching it, I talked to people, you know, a guy, for example, here whose mother was a professor at OSU. He lived in Bexley. They went to the game, and they couldn't get back to Bexley after the game, and they ended up sleeping in her office down on campus. And he said this group of them walked to her office. I could barely get to her office because the snow was so bad.
So why is it at some point no one thought, you know, we should probably stop the game, right? There was not, no, you finished the game. They finished the game, right?
Yeah, they played the game. The interesting thing was they wanted to cancel. OSU wanted to cancel the game. They wanted to postpone the game until Monday because the snowstorm was coming and it started snowing, and the Michigan athletic director wouldn't do it. He wouldn't go along with it. And Ohio State was supposed to win the game, which it didn't. So, you know, there's a guy here who stood on the sideline that stood on the sidelines before the game. He was standing there with Paul Hornung from the Dispatch and another guy, and they stood there and watched the two athletic directors. This is before the game. They were standing outside and telling me the story of them standing there arguing about whether to play the game or not. And he said he was a manager on the OSU team, and he said when the Michigan athletic director wouldn't play, he went back into the OSU locker room, and he told Wes Fessler, the Ohio State coach, they're going to play the game. And Fessler supposedly said something like, shit, you know, and then they played, and it was a horrible game, you know, horrible day, and they ended up losing, and Wes Fessler ended up getting fired because of this. So,
wow,
it's you know, that's why I say there were some interesting things like that that I got into, and I kind of researched while I was doing this. But a lot of the things that I did kind of grew out of my own experiences, because I've been a columnist for 20 years, and I covered Woody Hayes last 2 years, and so I have kind of a lot of these inside little things that I learned over the years, and I kind of pulled them together in this book.
Okay, so that was it sounds like a different process than, say, writing columns, right? You have this long, sounds like an aggregation process of things just sort of piling up. How long did it take you to create the book and get it into a form that, from the idea to the end? Probably a year.
I've got several books, and they're all, I did a book on Chick Harley called Chick in 2008, and that was like total research. Like I say, a lot of this was personal experience, and I had to go research a little bit to get the facts, so I wasn't, so make sure my memory was correct. But like Chick, I had to go through the microfilms, and I mean all of the people in the book were all dead, so it was a lot more historical, just going to the Ohio State archives and reading old letters and so on and so forth. So that was a little bit different. So there's different, I guess for me, the books have been different processes based on what it is, But the great thing about writing books compared to writing columns is you have all this space.
Right.
When you write a column and they say, okay, you've got 18 inches, and invariably you sit and you write what you're writing, and it's 21 inches, and you go, oh, it's 20, now I've got to cut this, and it's painful. It's a painful process cutting it.
I always think it's funny to hear like newspaper columnists, because they talk in inches. Like everybody else talks in words. And newspaper columnists, I got 3 inches I got to get rid of. But that's why you've got that inverted pyramid, right? So the editor just comes along at the end and says, all right, those 3 inches are just gone, even though it may be attractive.
They're not supposed to do that with columns. And so when they do, because a lot of times you build up to the conclusion, or the whatever your point is, and sometimes you labor over that more than the other. You want to know what you're going to leave them with. What's the point I'm trying to make, and I just did this today. I wrote a column for tomorrow, and it was about St. John Arena and the eventual demise of it, and I had written this thing yesterday, and this morning I was still messing with the last graph, because it was like I wanted to make sure that what I was saying was what I wanted to say. And the last when somebody reads it, I want to know this is what they're going to take away from it. So
what is it that just like in that one specific instance, and we can link to it on the YouTube video, what is it that you thought, this is really what I want to hit my readers with? What makes that moment for you, where you say, so here's the last paragraph that you've been messing with, maybe a better way of saying this, what kind of changes do you go through that alter what you're going to say?
I don't know if this answers your question, but I am a horrible. I mean, I rewrite. It's like if I have time, I'm always like trying to be very meticulous about what is this the right word? Is this exactly what I want to say? I mean, when I start out writing a column, I usually have an idea. I mean, this is my point or whatever. But as I said, it's usually when you get to the end, it's kind of like, what are you going to leave them with? Sometimes you do a column and it's not really that focused to the point that it's more of a feature column or whatever, and maybe you end it with a quote or something, a quote that maybe still makes a point. But my process, it's interesting if you do like if you're doing a newspaper, a sports column particularly, and just say you do a night football game. Well, in those cases, sometimes you write that column in 30 minutes or 30, 40 minutes. So it's like there's no, you're thinking on the fly and you're doing it, and when you're finished, it's a deadline and you push the button, and then that's it, and you think, oh geez, that wasn't very good, or that was pretty good considering the time I had or whatever. But when I'm doing something like yesterday, when I was writing this column for Sunday, I have all the time in the world. So then I wish that I was sometimes on deadline, because I'm sitting there. I should be finished, and I'll have my wife saying, "Come on, we have to go to dinner. We're supposed to meet somebody at 6 o'clock," and I'm saying, "Well, I'm not finished with this yet."
Well, what I'll do is we'll send that tape to your editor, where I said, "I wish I had a deadline," so that allows the editor to give more and more deadlines.
No, I think that please don't do that.
Well, Bob Hunter, thank you very much. Again, the book is St. Woody, The History and Fanaticism of Ohio State Football, along with Chick, The Extraordinary Rise of Ohio State Football and the Tragic Schoolboy Athlete Who Made It Happen, as another one of your books. And there are books, sports books for kids that people can explore. But thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Sure. From the Center for the Study and Teaching of Writing at The Ohio State University, this is Doug Dangler. Keep writing.